The Hollywood writers want you to believe that they are struggling for working class rights against overwhelming corporate greed and reckless use of technology. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. There's a crucial point that's being swept under the rug by the WGA, the press, and the studios that no one has talked about in earnest. At its heart, it's the most diabolical deal with the devil in the history of humankind, and also the biggest, most ambitious gamble in recent memory. We'll get to that later. First, let's do a quick, snarky review of the WGA's well-documented claims. Perhaps the most privileged sect of people alive are crying that they need more money to live in the two most expensive cities in the United States, that they are afraid technology is going to do to them what it has done to everyone else while they laughed and told people to learn to code, and that the entertainment executives should cease with their capitalist imperatives to constantly screw writers out of their royalties for streaming and resources for staffing levels. Though I've just cast these claims in a satirical light, they are not without some merit. Though we are rightly circumspect about claims to deserving an increase in wages in a troubled economy, an increase in workers when there is no additional work to be done, and an increase in revenue sharing if there is no revenue being made from the products created. And no comic book review, simply because I say this, doesn't mean I side with the studios. They are the devil in this story after all, but there might be other devils as well. Ambivalent? Great. Now let's meet the writers. What sorts of pains are these striking working class heroes enduring? Well, this writer laments that, in my case, I haven't been able to get a writing job for months. I've had to borrow money from my family to pay rent. This person is borrowing money from their family to pay rent? Rent in Santa Monica is about $4,000 to $5,000 for a studio. If they live in Hollywood proper, which is a shithole, a nightmarish hellscape, it's still like $2,700 a month. By the way, you will often have a grocery store like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Erewhon in walking distance. So it's not exactly a food desert. Anyways, I don't know about you, but my parents don't have $2,700 to $5,000 lying around for me to borrow when I text them. Gee, what a tough life these people are living. Another writer working on a show with a third season that I've literally never ever heard of made $3,200 a week after taxes and fees for 15 weeks. So if you do the math on that, that's about $12,800 a month. If he spends $4,000 on rent and $2,000 on food, which is normal for LA, he should be saving about $6,000 a month. So at the end of 15 weeks, he should have about $23,000 to $25,000 saved. Most Americans don't have $400 extra in their checking account to cover an emergency. So, I mean, the level of suffering here is just really hard to comprehend. How will they make it to their next job with a mere $23,000 of savings for just 15 weeks of work? Well, the New Yorker wants to tell me about these writers' struggles as well. So according to the New Yorker, the economics of streaming have chipped away at what was previously a route to a middle-class life as the cost of living in Los Angeles has crept upward. Oh my God. No. The released average salary of a TV writer in Hollywood is $250,000 a year. If you're making $250,000 in LA, you're living an upper middle class life. Full stop. You're not even close to being a member of Karl Marx's proletariat, and you don't get to automatically shout, "Workers of the world unite." You have nothing to lose but your chains. At best, you're shouting, "Wankers of LA unite." You have nothing to lose but your lavender lattes and Erewhon totes. So as far as making money is concerned, this is a very weak claim. The WGA will eventually win this. That will be the easiest concession the studios have ever made. Why? Because of the totally insidious gamble that they made. So if the money's going to get fixed, what's the real problem here? The coverage from the corporate media and the WGA would have us believe that something of immeasurable value is at stake. Again and again, we read that this is an existential fight for the future of the business of writing, and that the future of writing as a profession is at stake. So on one hand, you want me to empathize with you out on the picket lines in 70-degree California weather, making only $250,000 a year. And if I'm not persuaded that's a real issue, well, it's also the fate of writing itself as such is on the line. Now, that is a pretty serious concern. If one of the greatest technological advances ever is about to be destroyed, well, folks, you have my attention. Times are grave indeed. A revolution must be on the horizon. But then I see this diamond of a headline. Yes, folks, the title of this article by the venerable NPR is that the striking writers hope to strike up a romance on the picket lines. NPR really got its boots dirty and went to the sunny offices of Universal Studios to get the scoop. They report outside Universal Studios on Wednesday, hundreds of writers waved picket signs and flirted during a singles meetup event called Strike Up a Romance. Mon Dieu! They offered strikers breath mints and advice from a professional matchmaker who's also a TV writer. Yes, I imagine during the French Revolution or the run-up to the Tiananmen Square that people were setting aside time from their protesting to have relationship consulting sessions and enjoy a few treats, and were especially concerned about their breath as it relates to the humping prospects of potential romantic interests. If you think these examples are too extreme, it's the writers and the press who are calling this existential. But hold on here, maybe this is what they're talking about. What follows, I think, are the real tales of suffering. It's reported that this week, the lead singer and the guitarist of the band Imagine Dragons entertained writers striking outside Netflix headquarters in LA, where actor Pete Davidson brought them boxes of pizza. I mean, this is like a corporate Coachella. Yeah, let them protest, and this year we want it to be even more fun, so we're having live music, celebrities serving pizza, and even a singles table. A bit later in this article, we learned that after picketing all afternoon, the writers moved to a nearby outdoor restaurant, Roadside Taco. They drank margaritas, ate tacos, there should be a comma there, you fucking idiots, and exchanged numbers. This doesn't sound like your lives and careers are being existentially threatened. If you can afford to eat out in LA and enjoy $15 margaritas or flights of mezcal and tequila that run $65, you really aren't terrified of any existential threat to your lives or your current income levels. This doesn't look or sound like a revolution. It sounds like a total devolution. Hey, let's examine a far more serious claim that has yet to be made up to this point. The Guild's proposals are fair. They reflect the reality that writers shape culture and deserve to be able to provide for their families. The first part of this writer's statement claims that the Guild's proposals are fair, according to itself, of course, and that writers, hell, let's do them a favor here and edit it up to a more humane truth instead of the selfish one that this writer made. People, yes, all people, not just writers, should be able to have a family and provide for it should they choose to have a family. The part that's important here is the deeper claim, writers shape culture. On its face, it would seem self-evident that writers shape culture. However, in this context, I assume this person intends to mean TV and film writers. If that is the claim, then I'm very dubious indeed that writers shape culture. I'm going to include a sentiment this person purposefully repressed. Modern TV writers and modern film writers. So the real claim being made here is that modern TV writers and modern film writers shape culture. Does any modern TV writing or film writing shape culture, or only certain types? I would aver that exceptional writing may shape culture, but exceptional writing is not done in the medium of modern television and modern film. That's not to say it's not possible, only that recent modern TV and film has not proven to be the medium to probe and ponder the human condition. So not only are these writers just as greedy as their corporate overlords, it seems like they are at least as delusional as well. Do they actually believe they are making great art? Let's be clear, this isn't Shakespeare, Shelley, or Dante. This is Disney Plus, Netflix, and Amazon. There are notebook scraps from Shelley that have more profundity and controversy than the entire catalog of all these platforms combined. But to be honest, I'm not entirely sure they are claiming to have made great art. So that brings me to the most important part of this entire essay, what this strike is really about. This is absolutely about the quality of writing, which turns us to the great questions we had at the start of this essay. What was the diabolical scheme? What was the greatest gamble in the history of humanity? It was this. It was a bet that human creativity could actually be reduced to a formula, and that no matter how many times a human was pushed through that formula, it would keep asking for it again and again and again. That is to say, it was AI writing. AI writing is already here. It's been here. It's been used for the past 5 years. These studios got writers to write like machines. These writers were the first AI writing. TV and movies have already been boringly homogenized, become obviously formulaic, and are as sterile and simple as a math equation. You see, the first AI was humanity itself, simplifying its stories, finding the simplest and most relatable patterns that would resonate with other humans. And guess what? That writing did just fine with American audiences. In fact, American critics and consumers fucking loved it. It turns out American critics and consumers love superhero movies. They love political screeds stuffed into the mouth of 2D characters. They love live action reboots. They love sequels and soft reboots. They love prequels from original IPs. So the first part of the bet paid off, literally. Sure, there were some flops. Studio executives are well accustomed to those. But within each one of these AI experiments, from superhero movies to sequels, billions of dollars were made. That's one of the most successful gambles in all of capitalism, if not all of history. So what was the most diabolical deal in the history of humanity? It was the film and TV writers who sold out to create the templates for the very AI that would replace them. Yes, it was the wolfish studio executives who started this, but the writers eagerly, all too eagerly, complied, didn't they? Why bite the hand that feeds? Why stand up for capital A art when your $5,000 LA rent is paid for? You can drink at trendy rooftop bars, and you can play ping pong in an office. What they never bothered to pay attention to was the plotting minds and eager eyes of the executives. You see, the executives were creating a template, It's far easier for a human to become a machine than a machine to become a human, at least initially. And once you reduce the human to a machine-like production and existence, the machine now has a solid template to iterate off of at a speed that a human can never match. So is the future bleak, or did capitalism get an actual victory for humanity despite all the greed and ego working between the writers and the studio executives? The fact is that simple, formulaic content should absolutely be written by AI. It will save real humans the time from being bothered with it, and it might potentially be enjoyed by audiences who have previously watched that kind of thing. If you're a drooly consumer like Drew Gooden, who has enjoyed the kinds of shows, I call them AI experiments or AI projects, the sequels, the prequels, the reboots, the live action remakes. If you've enjoyed those that are mentioned with hushed reverence by the likes of the New York Times, the New Yorker, Variety, all the corporate press, then rejoice. You're going to get so many of these kinds of shows that you won't be able to consume them all in a single lifetime. If you're someone like me who enjoys new, risky stories, then you should rejoice as well. It should lead to an incredible rise in original, human-created storytelling because more genuinely talented writers will have time to dedicate to genuinely original and engaging stories with unique and exciting characters. Will AI ever become so sophisticated that it can create these kinds of stories? I think so. But that's a topic for another day. And all that money that the studios reap from their AI-generated content that people just can't wait to drink 24/7, yeah, they're going to take most of that for themselves. That's how capital H history has always worked. Parenthetically, I must say it's surprising, but we're still here and pressing on in some direction. I'm not an idealist, so I don't know if I would call it forward or progress, but we are still here and we are pressing onward. Now, a few of their executive peers will invest in original programming. Most of the time, they will lose on these gambles. But every now and then, they will find another George Lucas. And that will be the difference between studios that win the future and studios that lose. Sub specie aeterni, not much will have changed. But I'm of the belief that the world could use a few more folks like Lucas and Shakespeare, or Shelley and Milton if you like, or perhaps someone whose voice and vision are as new and fresh as those great bards, but well placed for our epic. I don't know if that makes me a member of the Devil's Party or on the side of the angels, but I do know I'm not on the side of the fucking idiots.